Right, welcome back to Adventure 82. We're back on the trail. I was going to say rails, but the rails aren't here. That's a clue. We're following the Jersey Eastern Railway. So this will be another multi-part one, similar to the JRNT that I started with last year. Hopefully though, with better filming and editing, because you would have thought I've learnt quite a lot within a year. You can tell me that one. In the meantime, I'm making the most of the good weather. Lovely blue sky. It's supposed to disappear by the weekend though, so you have to make the most of it when it turns up. It's not quite regular, you can't guarantee it just yet. So with that in mind, cue the intro. Right, so you may have already guessed I'm at Snow Hill, but before we show you around the station, I'll give you some basic information on how this came to be before we start following it. So on the 15th of March 1871 was when they first applied to start building the Jersey Eastern Railway. Coincidentally, the exact same day that the gentleman down at Lemoy put through his application to extend the Corbière line down to his quarry so that he could get his quarry down there that we covered in the JRNT. The following day that permission was granted by the states, but back then that wasn't as simple as that, so it then had to go through and be approved by the Queen, and it was given the royal stamp of approval in March of 1872, and in May of 1872 they started building the railway. This whole area was just solid rock, so this was all excavated by hand. When next time you're in Snow Hill car park, giving you appreciation for it. But to build the station here, this was all solid rock, and you just had the fort on top of the rock up there. So next time you're here, just take a good look at the rock, and just you need to appreciate just how much effort would have gone into excavating this to turn it into a station in the first place. So with permission granted, the first hole was dug by the chairman's wife, and they were given a commemorative wheelbarrow and spade, which is now, unless it's been removed, it was on display in the Jersey Museum. So next time you're up in the Jersey Museum and you're in the section that's labelled the Story of Jersey, just take a look in there, and you will find, and like I said, unless they've removed it, there's a wheelbarrow and a spade. That's the commemorative wheelbarrow and spade that was given to the chairman and his wife on the start of this railway. Right, so the railway itself was completed up to and opened in 1873 as far as Grooville. So the line at that point was Green Street Station, which we'll cover in the next video, to Grooville Station. And then a month after that, it was the extension all the way down to Gorey was opened, and then you had the full length of the line bar Snow Hill. The Snow Hill station wasn't opened until a year after the rest of the line, just because the sheer excavation amount of work that went into building this set it behind. So at that point there was a temporary terminus at the Grooville station, and when this station opened in 1874, the same day that this was opened, the Green Street Station passenger platform was removed, and as a passenger station it was closed down. It then became just a goods station, but we'll cover that, like I say, in the next video. For now, let's go and have a look around Snow Hill. Right, so we'll start from the other end of the station, or what was the station, and then we'll work our way back down. It seems to be the most logical way to do this. as we head down the other end of the station, I'll give you some more specifics. So like I say, this was opened on the 6th of May 1874. It was a single-sided platform, which currently I would be walking on if it was still here, but we'll come back to that. And then it also had 2 carriage sidings. At the time that the Snow Hill station was open, they were charging what would be the equivalent of 10p for a ride from Snow Hill all the way to Goree. But they introduced a new thing the same day the station was opened at Snow Hill, which was that on a Sunday you could ride for a reduced rate for the full length of the line at 6p. At this end, up until recently, and if I can find a picture I will edit it in now, but roundabouts here, until they redid the car park, this area here would have been a turntable, because it was, and in fact it was only turntable in the Channel Islands. And very nice lady there was telling me she remembered the turntable being here. And it actually stayed here after the trailway shut, because this was then turned into the Snow Hill bus station, and they used it to turn the buses around so they could drive back out. Now, for those of you who are familiar with the Snow Hill car park, you'll probably walk across and past this cream wall most days if you come down here regularly. What you probably aren't aware of necessarily is that is the back wall to the original station platform, and you would have had a awning on top of there, a triangle shaped awning, and you can see in places, especially when it dips down here, you can see where the awning used to be attached. This was removed when they used it as a bus station, and you can see here there's a concrete step, and then you have the tarmac, which is what I'm stood on now. That concrete step is completely level, and that all the way down to where Erica is down there at the other end playing with her telephone, that was the platform level. That was cut away and replaced with the pavement when the bus station was put in, but this was the original part of the station. So you can see here, this is what I mean, just at the top of the arch here you can see where your awning was attached. It was like I say, it was like an angled shape, a bit like a house roof, and then that was all the way along here. Interesting thing to note was, if you ever come down here as well, is that these bits here, all these support bricks here, these were put in later on when they built the water storage caverns inside that rock, which are now owned, I believe, by Jersey Water. So maybe that can be something I can film for you guys. Right, as Erica's sorting out my bag, thing she does for YouTube, she's working wounded today. She's gotten up and for some reason her back doesn't want to work. This happens to you on a regular basis, does it not?
It does. It's my fault, falling downstairs and such. You know, that's what happens.
Right, so anyway, we're going to follow our path down here, like I said, and I'll show you the other bits and pieces of the station. It does mean, if this means anything to anybody watching, it does mean, Erica, we're going to have to go up Regent Road to get on top of the bridge. Unless you're going to take a sit down and make me go up on my own.
Yes, I am.
Right, well that's that decided. So without any further ado, let's go further down here. Right, so as we work our way back down Snow Hill, and Erica tries to make her back move work, you'll notice when you come down you have these bits here, this section of wall here. This is reinforced concrete. This was put in as a safety precaution by the Germans during the occupation, because the last actual use of the station was by the Germans in the occupation, as it was with the west side of the island. So these are actual German walls, and the Germans use this station quite frequently, and Green Street Station as well. Point. Right, so as we get here, you can see now this railway bridge here. Like I say, this was all excavated by the JER So originally this bridge wouldn't have been needed, the road went straight across, there was no bridge necessary. When they excavated their way in, the bridge was then necessary to maintain the crossing there for Regent Road. I say Regent Road actually goes up that way and ends in a staircase. I'm not quite sure what this road's called. But a gentleman who came to visit the Eastern Railway once it was finished actually went up that way to take a look at the station from a distance with appropriate height. And while he was up there, he was looking around, and when he came back down and he gave his report on the station and how impressed he was with the station given the circumstances that it was built under and where it was, he also commented on the fact that Regent Road was in fact the most pointless road he'd ever come across, because he couldn't understand or fathom why someone would have built a road that ends in a staircase. So there you go. Right, this is an anomaly to me. So I don't know what this is for. This looks concrete. I'm guessing possibly most things up here, if they're concrete, they're German. Well, there was a bit of work done up here in the 50s when they removed the station, etc. So it may have been from then too. But if anybody can tell me what this is for, because clearly it was for something, because you can see cutouts here where something was sat there. So if anybody knows what this was for and what was bolted onto it, that'd be quite cool. But right, let's take a closer look at this this bridge. So you can see what they've done with the granite here, and they've built themselves buttresses to hold your bridge up on both sides. They had a similar thing further down at Roseville Street. I don't know if there was any kind of signalling or anything up here, because the way this was lined out, you had the Snow Hill trucks would come out and go through here. Down there would have been the Green Street station, which they were covering in the next video. And then you had Green Street going along kind of here in between the two. It was just a standard road at the time. It doesn't look, from pictures I've found, that there was any kind of gates or anything, crossing gates. So I don't know whether maybe it was just signalled or what it was. But let's go take a look up on top of this bridge and I'll show you the view from there. Right, so I'm coming up the stairs here by the tunnel, which is another interesting thing in itself. The tunnel there, which was finished in 1867, and until that was finished in 1867, this road, which is called Route de Four, that roundabout existed even after that, because this originally was a crossroad, they said, with Green Street, and all the way down to Georgetown didn't exist. Route de Four was not a road until the 1960s when they built the tunnel. Main road now, and you can't imagine, a lot of motorists anyway wouldn't be able to imagine how you got around without it. But before the tunnel was built in 1967 and went straight through the site of the former Green Street station, which we're covering next week, you had to drive around. You had to go up and over the hill at South Hill, come down into the La Collette area, and that was that. This was an actual viewing area that was still here when the train was here. So this section was actually still here. I'm going to show you ahead of time somewhere a picture of Green Street Station, and you'll see in the background, you'll see this bridge, and next to that bridge you'll see a telegraph pole. That telegraph pole is that wooden stump there. So that's been there since, what, 1872 probably? So it's like, what, about 150 years old now? But you can see how this was original. See, it was all built out of granite. This would originally been property of the railway itself. The main reason that you came up here is this was actually a lookout and a maintenance area to keep an eye on what was going on over there, Green Street, and also to keep an eye on what was happening bridge-wise, because there would have been, you can actually get up onto the bridge, which is the way we're going to go around now, and you could keep an eye on everything from there as well. But obviously they didn't want people standing in the middle of the road, so that was there. There was in the 70s and 80s there was benches here where you could sit, but that was before you had the amount of traffic you have coming through from the tunnel now, so probably not as pleasant a place to sit as it would have been back in the day. But this was supposed to, well, was even going into the 80s, a very nice, smart, quite tidy public garden, because it was a common way of getting to and from the fort if you didn't like the cable cars, because not everybody likes heights. And you can see the walls that they put in the granite there, and just make it a generally pleasant place to be. Right, so we're now on top of the bridge. The bridge is there. I found something slightly interesting here though. Don't know if anybody else can shed light on this one, but looks like once upon a time there was a gate sealing off this road. Now I don't know if that was railway related or not, and it clearly was removed because you can see where its brother was there, and that's been cut away, but it looks like that was a hinge. So what this was used for originally, I don't know, and you can see some of the old curbing actually as well. And all the way along then you've got the granite curbing. So what this road was originally used for, I don't know. It's now just a walk path. You can drive up it to a point. I don't think you can get out the other end because it comes out near the back of Fort Regent, which is towering above us up there. The abandoned eastern wing, which nobody uses anymore. Used to be staff accommodation in the 70s and 80s. As far as I'm aware, it's just a complete wreck these days. If we can ever get in there, maybe I'll show you that. But right, so on top of our bridge, and there's your view. That's where we just were. There, and you can see Erica there. I'm giving you a wave. And then you've got your roundabout, and you can see how this was a good lookout area for the station. Management team who were, it's the same team that sorted out the Green Street station, which would have been there, and the Snow Hill one that would have been here. If we go across the Snow Hill end, you can see here how your trains would have left there all the way through. You can see here clearly a curve-in point there. That was the drop-off point for the buses. So you had numerous buses that would leave from the depot at the back, but on their way back in, from what I've been told, so if I've been informed incorrectly, please do tell me, but from what I've been told, the buses would drop off people here, depending on the route you're taking, and then they drive off in there, turn around, come back. Now, I don't know how true that is, because obviously this is 1950s and 60s. By the time that I was a child, the bus station moved again down to the Weight Bridge, which is also now a place where you're not allowed to drive. So your guess is as good as mine. But that's what I've been told. I was told that by an old lady who says she remembers getting off at this point, and that's why that dip was put in, and it's just never been removed. Even when it was a car park, they just turned the dip into car park space. In fact, you can see the white lines, faded white lines, or at least I can. I don't know if they come out on the camera. Now you can notice the parking stations are blue. They're reserved for people going to the police station just across the road there. But this side, once you come up here, you can see it's not changed much from when it was all first built. You'd never guess you were on a brick bridge though. I can't imagine, and if you actually pull this up, someone was telling me if you actually remove this underneath, you still have the old cobbles like you have for that drain there underneath. They just laid the concrete on top. I wonder if, actually, do you know what I'll do? I'll give you 2 for 1. This is a Snow Hill video and it's beginning the JER. But I think what we should do, and probably a lot of people will say I should do, despite what I said earlier, I should probably show you how the cable car works. So, whilst I'm up here, this is the perfect place to do it from. So let's go up here, and this will have to be the Jersey Eastern Railway Part 1 and the Fort Regent cable car, all in one video. See? Bonus content, people, bonus content. Right, so as we're walking our way up, this is Regent Road. This is the pointless road the gentleman I was mentioning to you mentioned before that ends in a staircase at the other end, comes down by Snow Hill. So, back in the day, I say that, I'm only 40, but back in the day, there was in fact a cable car. And I would guess that probably most people who've moved over here since, what, the 90s maybe, or have a grandma who's never lived, who's always lived here, or a mum or a dad who grew up here, one of them would have gone to you, I remember when you used to be able to get to Fort Regent by a cable car. They were a very beloved thing. And they were removed. With remnants of it still existing up until last year. Last year? No, 2020. When Mr. Fondre State's crew decided to remove what was left. So you can see this big opening here. You've got a big tree there, and then you've got another tree here, and you've got an opening there. That opening there, slightly to the behind the big tree as well, is where the cable car used to go in, and then there's a set of stairs there which you climb up to go into Fort Regent. So that was one end of the cable car. The cable car came along here. Excuse me, van. We'll go a bit further up and then I'll explain. So the cable car came from its depot here and it went all the way along. Now these lamp posts haven't been put in for security cameras, and they haven't been put in for convenience of the drivers. Where these lamp posts are is actually where the support posts were for the cables that carried the cable car. So every time you pass a lamp post, whether it's that one there, and there's another one further up, it was a big massive pole that came all the way up to about this level on the rock that held the cables up, might have even come up higher. It felt like it was a flipping skyscraper to me when I was a kid. I was about 5, 6, first time I saw them. And they used to catch it from there. Now if you're very familiar with the Snow Hill area, you're going to turn around and go, Stephen, you lunatic, that's the bloody public toilets. And you're correct, it is. But the public toilets were also instrumental in the cable car depot, Snow Hill end anyway. So this power station was originally put in for the cable car back when they first installed it in the, I believe, the 60s, when they first built the fort. I might have that wrong, but they put it in there anyway. That's what that's there for. Primarily that was put in originally to supply the cable cars, so it wasn't uncommon. If you're a regular user of Snow Hill, you'll remember you used to come along here and you had to have a constant humming sound like that, which would come from the motor being powered from the cable car of the cable cars being powered in there. So what's the cable car have to do with the public toilets. Well, not the public toilets themselves, not a lot, but let me explain. We'll get a bit closer. So we'll start by looking at the floor here. It's the easiest place to do it from. So you can see here in the paving stones, there's a concrete section there. That's because if you look, there's a doorway just next to where you go into the ladies' toilet, which is a disabled toilet. But just here you start a staircase, and that staircase would go up here above that door, and then it would go round. So you came up here this way, and then you went up that way, and then that brought you up into a gantry here, which you can see the cutout of in the wall. And that gantry, this was a service depot, this was a service area for the actual power station itself. And you had a gantry that went across from there, all the way across here, went over this wall, around the wall, and it went to here. And you can see that brick wall there next to the power station. That was one of the supports. The other one was built into the floor, which I think may have been removed when they did this section here for the bike parking. And then if we look in the wall, if you look in the wall down here, you can't see it from up here, but there's loads of, you can see holes, and you can see, hang on, if I slip my camera out a bit more, let me take my bag off. You can see a section there, if my camera can film it for you, of concrete. That's because on this side, the cable car depot was built into the actual granite of the wall, and then it went up that way. There is a gentleman on YouTube who's actually got footage of getting the cable car. I'll see if I can put some footage in of it for you. If I can't, what I'll do is I'll ask permission first, but if I can, I'll put a link into it for you instead. But that is the story of Jersey's cable car. Pretty brief, pretty brisk, but I think worth telling. So you can see here, see it used to sit there, and you've got another ledge here, and that's where your cable cars came out, and they went on up. It was on an angle, so it was a slight climb, slight incline, very similar to actually the incline of this road actually. And that was the cable car. So if you were here in any of these flats which were around in the 80s, you lived in one of these houses, you got to wake up and see cable cars going past every day, which I think is pretty cool. Right, so from me here on Regent Road, that's the story of the beginning of the JER and Jersey's cable car. Next week we'll be following the Green Street station all the way down to the St Luke's, former St Luke's station, and we may do another station as well. It depends, because the JR is much more built up a station than the Jersey Western Railway was, but a lot of the path is still accessible or showable, so we'll see how we go. It'll be at least up to St Luke's station, station by station, like the previous one. But until then, awesome thanks for you guys for watching. Now if you haven't already subscribed, please do, and obviously if you can spare like a couple of quid on Buy Me a Coffee to help these videos and help the channel, that would be awesome. And I'll see you next week. Until then, have a nice week, guys.